The Rising of the Shield Hero is an anime series that's so bad that it's actually good. Greetings, my friends. Make sure to bring out your sword, your spear, your bow, and your shield, because there is a brand new anime series on the block. It is The Rising of the Shield Hero. This is a series that I had no intention of watching. I did a very, very minute amount of research on this show, and when I learned that it was basically just the run-of-the-mill story about a normal guy in the real world who gets sucked into a fantasy world and is stuck there, I was just like, done, not watching it. Don't even care. This sounds derivative as fuck. But that's where you guys come in. You guys always know when there's going to be a new show that I'm going to end up liking. You definitely know my tastes. And I have to say that the first 2 episodes of this series were pretty damned awesome. So let's just go ahead and get this out of the way. What is the deal with this series? Well, it kind of starts out just like every other show about a character trapped in a fantasy world, except that it's about this very unassuming character who goes by the name of Iwatane Naofumi. He actually ends up getting trapped in this light novel series, which is hilarious, by the way, and he ends up getting transported to this fantasy world where he's one of 4 chosen heroes. These chosen heroes are going to have to defend this world from some evil wave of destruction. Waves which keep getting even more powerful with each one that arrives. And each of these heroes are going to have a signature weapon. A sword, a spear, a bow, and a shield. And it just so happens that Naofumi is going to get the shield, which isn't even a weapon. It's a defensive item. Hell, it's practically a piece of armor. And what's so fascinating about all of this is that these weapons are sort of like a representation of who these characters are and what their true personalities are. And Naofumi is a character who is constantly putting up his shield against the world, and thus that's what he's going to have to use in this fantasy setting. Now, what's really great and super funny about the very first episode, and ultimately heartbreaking, is that who wouldn't want to be transported to an awesome fantasy world where you're the chosen hero who gets to save everyone and hang out with hot anime chicks and drink all sorts of beer and go crazy? It's manly, it's awesome, and I think it's what all anime fans dream of. The problem is when he goes into this world, everyone just completely shits on him in every single way. He's treated like a moron, an idiot, and he ultimately ends up getting tricked by this one girl in this world, which ends up completely fucking him over. And watching it all happen in the span of the first episode, guys, is really fucking hard to watch. It actually irritated me how much these characters just screwed this guy over. Allow me to elaborate a little bit more. The first episode of the series is a solid 45 minutes long. I didn't expect it to be like that, but apparently this is a long-running light novel series, so lots of freaking ground to cover and worlds to explain. But most everything in the first half of the first episode is pretty standard and stock. Character transported to a fantasy world, meets a couple of people, ends up getting douched on a little bit, but eventually finds himself a teammate, this really attractive girl who goes by the name of Mine. She actually decides to join him when apparently Naofumi didn't get anybody to want to join his party, but she sort of does it out of pity by joining him, showing him around the world, and it even seems like they're going to form a really strong relationship, a friendship, or maybe even something more. Until we learn that apparently this is all a part of a clever ruse to completely take all of his money and make this guy look like a serial rapist. Yes, she actually returns back to the king claiming that Naofumi actually tried to take all of her money and ultimately tried to rape her, which basically everybody just immediately gives him the friggin' stink eye. The Me Too era is firing a beam directly at Naofumi, and it fucking hurts, and it's hitting him directly in the fucking ball sack. Now, of course, if this were the real world, he'd probably be fucked, he'd go on trial, and he'd probably ultimately be thrown in jail. But since he's one of the 4 heroes, they have no choice but allow him to sort of still do his thing because he's still one of the chosen ones who has to take out this monster. The trade-off, however, is that everyone's going to be even more douchier to him than they could possibly be, especially the 3 other heroes, who I swear to God might be the most unlikable characters that I've ever seen. If it's not their incredible smugness, it's their annoying designs. I really hope that these characters are eventually going to get their comeuppance, and I have a feeling it will happen eventually, as we get to learn from the first episode that now Fumi is officially a prisoner in this world where everyone hates him, and he has to still do something fast and level up quick, otherwise he's going to be destroyed by this massive wave of pure, raw destruction. And this forces a change in now Fumi. He goes from being this like really optimistic and happy character, and ultimately turning into someone who's incredibly vindictive and hateful. He fucking hates everyone now. Anyone who gets up in his face, he don't give a shit. He just acts like a douchebag to whoever he wants now, knowing that it doesn't really matter. Everyone hates me. Fuck you guys. I'm gonna save the day. In some ways, it's kind of cathartic to see him sort of get back at this world, which is ultimately just sort of like put his face in the dirt, but at the same time, it's also heartbreaking to see this character who was filled with so much hope at one point, only to have it all dashed away from some very greedy and super fucking annoying chick. And that brings us to the second episode of the series, which thankfully is not 45 minutes fucking long. They actually managed to get to the point in this episode, but it drives home the fact that now Fumi is just living in this world, trying to survive, and he hates fucking everyone. And watching him act this way, like I said, does kind of feel good at times, but at the same time, you kind of want to see him reclaim that happy personality. And I think the first step into getting back there is the introduction of the brand new character who goes by the name of Raftalia, who's a raccoon demi-human, or she's basically just a super cute anime tanuki girl. She's actually a slave who's actually sold to now Fumi because he needs someone to actually help him out in battle. He has a shield that only has the ability to transform into certain elemental forms, and he can only defend. He needs someone to fight, so that's why he decides to bring this girl in. And of course, Raftalia seems like she's going to be one of the big main characters of the series. We get to see her in the intro, and she even seems like she's going to go through a tremendous amount of growth, where when we see her initially, she's basically just this really cute little girl who's incredibly timid and doesn't come across as like a super powerful warrior, whereas in the intro we get to see that she eventually gets older, taller, and maybe even wielding more powerful weapons and building a much stronger bond with now Fumi. But as it is at first, she's basically his pet. And this was the part of the episode where I thought he was going to immediately start feeling sorry for this character and start to be a little lenient with them, but no, throughout the course of the entire episode, he is absolutely hard on Raftalia, forcing her to fight against monsters and do things against her very own will. And she has to do these things too. She actually has this brand on her chest. Whenever he demands something, she has to do it, and if she resists in any way, well, she gets the old pink electric shocks. But as the episode goes on, you actually get to see that their relationship is actually becoming pretty copacetic and actually seeming to be working out for both of them, with Raftalia actually having somewhere to be that's safe and loving and where food is. We even get to learn a little bit about her backstory, which is very cliche and very simple, but I think there's an edge of mystery to it, which could make it pretty cool. Apparently, she came from some Tanuki village where everyone was wiped out, including her parents, by some sort of weird three-headed dog-like monster. I don't know. Her parents managed to save her by pushing her off a cliff, and somehow she survived that. She ended up a slave, and now she's in the ownership of now Fumi. And there's a scene towards the end of the episode where they go to these caverns to try and make some money, and they end up battling against this giant two-headed dog, which completely freaks her out. She ends up getting PTSD, thinking about all this crazy shit that happened to her parents, and this is where now Fumi basically forces her to fight, which that's the way it seems at first, and it honestly paints him as kind of a cold and heartless character, and it was that point where I was like, maybe there is no going back for him. Maybe he is just destined to be a douchebag forever. But no, when he realizes how intensely scared that she actually is, he decides to resign the order and says that he's simply just going to defend against this creature and that she needs to leave. But that's, of course, when her strength is bolstered and she realizes that she's going to have to become strong if she's going to have to fight back against these monsters and the other waves and forces that are coming, because it could ultimately end up resulting in the deaths of even more people just like her parents. And she decides to fight back. They manage to defeat the creature, and thus a very strong bond is formed between these two characters, which were ultimately outcasted by the world in which they live. So what's the rundown on the first two episodes of The Rising of the Shield Hero? I have to admit, going into the show, I was ready to absolutely hate everything about it. I thought it looked so generic on the outside, and it does carry a lot of the same tropes of those series that I've actually seen. In fact, it's literally the third show that I'm currently reviewing right now, which is all about someone who is trapped in some sort of weird fantasy world, or at least transported to one. And just like that time I got reincarnated as a slime, it's doing something a little different. And I love that the main character of the series, you know, I know this sounds weird to say, I love that he's just this underdog that got shit on so hard in the first episode. It's going to make seeing his development and overall personality change throughout the entire series that much more satisfying, for him to be able to regain his hopefulness and his happiness yet again, because, man, his first day in this world absolutely sucked in every single way, and a lot of it is all because of that bitch who completely just screwed him over. It was apparent from the beginning that something was wrong and that clearly she had weird intentions. I just didn't imagine that she would go to the lengths of actually calling him a rapist and putting all of these allegations on him, which ultimately pretty much screwed up his entire experience in the world, where every single person he interacted with basically just gave him a middle finger. But eventually, he learned to get past that by coming up with sorts of funny strategies, like whenever he would walk into a shop to buy something, he would have these like weird little creepy balloon monsters like always attached to him, and he would use those to threaten the vendors by saying, basically, look, if you don't give me a fair deal, I'm gonna let this little fucker loose in your shop, and it's not gonna look too pretty. The series ultimately gains its heart with the introduction of Raftalia, who I have a feeling is going to be a very popular character, if only for the fact that she's an adorable Tanuki girl. I mean, how can you not like her? Look at her cute little ears. When she gets happy, her tail wags. It's fucking adorable. She's a real simple character, but a very sympathetic one, and I think a really great companion for Naofumi, a character who has been ultimately just shit on by the world. These are two characters who are going to have to crawl out from the muck to regain the respect of everyone around them. And honestly, with the way that they treated them, I don't even know if they should even want their respect. I kind of hope that they're kind of dicks to everyone throughout most of the series at this point. I can't wait to see where it's all going, and I can't wait to see what this whole evil wave thing is all about. They've been building it up a lot, so hopefully it leads to something pretty cool. What I will say is, the concept of a main character using a shield as his main weapon is honestly alone by itself pretty intriguing. It's just, the overall story itself initially, to me anyway, seemed kind of stock and boring. The good thing is the show is anything but. This is the type of show which should absolutely just suck. And I have a feeling that a lot of people are probably not even going to like the show just simply on principle. But honestly, just take it for what it is and just enjoy it. Don't bitch about it. It's just a cool Japanese cartoon. And honestly, I think this is one to look out for. It's one that I'm honestly pretty excited about, and considering that it was probably one of my least favorite shows to watch at the beginning of the season, that's saying a lot. I want to thank all of you, everyone who recommended this show to me so damn much, because I probably wasn't going to look at it, but you guys really, really hammered it in that I had to check this show out. And I'm so glad that I did. I'm going to give both the first and second episode a 4 out of 5. I still think that some of the elements of the episode could be better, such as the animation and some of the character design. But for the most part, this is really solid stuff right here, and something that I can find myself having a lot of fun with, and I can honestly see why it's a pretty popular franchise to begin with. And I really, it's the characters themselves that kind of made it. They're very different than any other main characters that I've seen from other shows. So for that alone, I'm pretty damn excited. So that's my thoughts on the episode. I'd love to get all of yours. You can tell me all of them in the comments section, and what you hope to see from the rest of the Rising of the Shield Hero. Thank you all for watching this review. I'll see you all next time, and as always, stay down now, baby.